Surprised to see such a big turnout today. This work, do you tell me when I can get started?
Yeah. Anytime.
Okay, great. So we worked on this together with Alice, and this work you will see is extremely different to most of the other work being published around live streaming that's mainly looking at what's happening right now, how live streaming came to be what it is, and maybe a little bit about some of the trends that are emerging. We're taking that as a starting point and trying to project and visualize what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. We're actually an innovation company. What interests us is really to get ready for what's coming up into the future. Why do we publish this kind of work for free? Is because we want to share our perspective and confront our convictions and our observations together with you guys. So please do feel free to quote our work and to build on it. So as all of us know, live streaming has taken a really big part of e-commerce operations. Already 2 years ago, it accounted for 10% of GMV sold on e-commerce, and it's only been growing. So by now, 68% of Chinese netizens are purchasing on live streaming, which is massive and unprecedented in the rest of the world. And we also see that it has transformed e-commerce in a number of ways that we will delve into inside. So now our perspective is how do we look into certain dimensions that are impacting the future of live streaming, and we've identified 5 of those dimensions, and use our expertise and the weak signals that we observe in order to imagine how that could really be brought into 5 to 10 years into the future. So as I've mentioned, it has now become a critical part of e-commerce. Marketers are foreseeing that it's going to continue to grow and to become an even more important part of their e-commerce operations, but beyond that, of their consumer touchpoints. We're now at all those numbers. I go very quickly because all of you guys know it, and depending on which report you take them, they're slightly different, but they're really 600 million, more than 600 million people are using e-commerce to consume products online. Most of them are in their prime consumption age, 27 to 40, and a lot of them, almost half of them, are connecting on live streaming more than 5 times a week. If we look at the 2 main drivers and interest, we see e-commerce is obviously number 1, but what's coming up as a very, very big trend is non-e-commerce live streaming, so entertainment and learning and other aspects. And so if we just look at how live streaming has impacted e-commerce in particular, on a qualitative perspective, number 1, it has really made e-commerce more rapid. So we can see that star live streaming hosts have made unknown brands being able to sell millions of products in seconds. It has increased product desirability by showing multiple aspects of a product and not just a picture like you see on e-commerce marketplaces. And also the promotions that are still a big part of how live streaming e-commerce is operating nowadays is also shortening the path from awareness to purchase. It has made it more ubiquitous. So we've seen live streaming make its way to e-commerce platform with Tao Live, for example, but also social platforms like channels, WeChat channels. Short videos are now opening e-commerce functions like Douyin, but also offline are becoming the background. Offline stores are becoming the background for live streaming sessions. And finally, it's made it a lot more intimate because brands are actually, its hosts are introducing brands and products in a very casual way, in a very relatable way, which has really been a game changer for making those products more desirable. So now let's, put our, open our imagination and think about where live streaming is heading us to in the next 3, 5 to 10 years. And we've looked at today's weak signals, and we really see and believe that live streaming will continue and even go beyond transforming the consumer-brand relationship. And we've looked at 5 main dimensions that we think have a major impact in the way that live streaming can do that. The first one is tech and hardware, where we're really looking at hardware being able to propose infinite interfaces that will have a huge impact on live streaming. Content, that's the major aspect of live streaming and going from something very commercial to going to truly transparent and highly personalized content. Hosts, nowadays we're mainly talking about physical human hosts. What if we could go beyond, and we've already seen going beyond. Products that are usually very pretty sided and also not designed for live streaming will go into that direction. And finally, because this is a major aspect in the way that industries are developing in China, what are the regulations going to look like, and moving towards real-time control. So we'll be switching hats with Alice. I'll be having my right brain hat, and she'll have her left brain hat. And in the future, when we're moving you towards those 5 dimensions. So let's have a look at hardware tech and how hardware can allow us to have infinite live streaming experiences. Yeah. So we'll see that multi-sensorial experiences are already starting to arise with certain devices that have the ability to talk to more than just our vision and our ear, towards ubiquitous interface that are going beyond tactile, seamless, virtual real world. I'm not using the M word, so don't get all fuzzy. And then multi-sensorial experiences.
Right. Thank you so much, Rachel, for walking us through our basic logic and our underlying logics and framework of this study. So I'll be walking us through all the imaginations of what we envision the future live streaming is going to look like. So don't feel free, you're going to be mind-blowing, because this meant to be a mind-blowing session. So just follow our leads. Let's firstly look at how the technology is going to advance in the long run. So the first of all is going to be beyond tactile. So I think it's no surprise that whoever has watched the live streaming or has basic knowledge about live streaming right now is that there's still limited content that's basically constrained in your device, be it a laptop or your cell phone. So in the future, we figure the landscape is going to be device agnostic, meaning that just picturing you're watching a live cooking show and you're going to move around your screen along with you in your own kitchen. So basically, any flat surface in front of you is going to be the projector of your live streaming content. Whether you're grabbing a tomato from your refrigerator or you're cooking over the oven, it's going to be right there in front of you while you're watching the host telling you what to do and instructing you, right? And the next phase is going to be seamless boundary between virtual and real worlds. So right now, I think it's already a weak signal that we are seeing that in the industry, we're able to use AR or VR goggles or devices to access any virtual similar holography technology empowered projectors or live streaming content. But in the future, it's going to be completely universal, that people are using holography and 3D printing technology all at once. So just picture you're watching your favorite T-shirt being live broadcasted to you over that projector, while you can have that being produced right next to you with that 3D printer. So it's going to be the next phase, direct-to-consumer business model. And the very ultimate visionary, we figured, would be multi-sensorial experiences. So right now, people tend to hyphenate all their 5 senses when it comes to any kinds of physical or virtual experiences. So what if we can develop such a system or operation system or platform to simulate all of our 5 senses, starting with our touching all the way to tasting or smell. So again, imagine you're watching the same live cooking show. You'll be able to touch that device you're using and feel the tomato you're using, compare it to see if it's a firm or not, compared to the one the host is introducing to you. Yeah, so what all of these mean to our business practitioners, I'll let Rachel introduce.
Yes, those technologies actually already exist, and we've sourced those technologies for some of our clients. So what does that mean for us as business owners? They would create more intimate brand-consumer relationship and also more seamless purchase experiences. So through frontier experiences, we can really go into a whole new level and dimension of product appealingness. It will mean that that as business professionals we'll have to continuously upgrade our new technologies and also connect with hardware manufacturers in order to expand the possibilities. And finally, we're expecting that by giving a more accurate and concrete understanding of the product to consumers, we might be able to boost conversion rate and reduce returns, which, as you know, in e-commerce is a major concern. About 30% of e-commerce are returns, and it's a nightmare in terms of logistics. So that could be a game changer for the industry. So, as a second aspect, the content, which is one of the core and the main reason why people are watching live streaming now. We're really considering they could become truly transparent and highly personalized. Nowadays, consumers all around the world and also in China have more and more demands around transparency, particularly around safety and sustainability. They want more authentic, and they're moving away from super commercially driven content. And finally, they're expecting more and more personalization. So what does that mean if consumers can be exposed to a larger part of the value chain? Not just sales and marketing, but raw material sourcing and production, marketing and sales, of course, but also after sales and CRM.
Right. So starting with our raw material sourcing, the very upstream of the supply chain, I think it's no surprise for us to see some of the farmers are already doing their live streaming, hosted at the very origin places of their field, just to show you their food is authentic and green and safe. And that actually follows up on the shared consumer needs over the industry, that people wanted to see the highly transparent and authentic content when it comes to live streaming, despite what brands might claim. So that'll give us an idea of the future live streaming is going to be hosted or arranged at the original places, or even hosted over an animal. So you'll be able to see your milk, the milk you're drinking being squeezed out from the cow, and he's going to be carrying the monitor or carrying the camera for you. And when it comes to the production line, again, people wanted to see how their products are being produced or assembled, despite their raw materials might be authentic or green. So again, just imagine you are watching a live streaming over your favorite Hermes handbag. You'll be able to see that worker assembling or doing the craftsmanship for you, while you can do this sort of interactions with him. And just to, it's more like a one-on-one live streaming or Q&A session where you get to ask you all your questions, and the worker is going to, have those answered for you. And when it comes to, so here is an example that's already happening in the China market. As the most recent case, we figured that's going to, slightly touching on this personalization or customization live streaming content. So during this year's 618 festival, Tmall is already arranging their live sessions, which involves their consumers, to do this live voting. And they're partnering with brands like Chando and Walls. So for instance, in this Chando case, they are inviting their consumers online during their preheating marketing campaign. And they wanted their consumers to answer if they want the brand ambassador Gu Li Na Zha to do a solo or do a on-site selfie. So whoever gets the most votes will get to see Gu Li Na Zha do the exact same thing during the live streaming. So this might not be as crazy as what we imagine, but it's already starting off to, giving more options for consumers to choose whatever their live streaming content is going to look like. Yeah. So marketing and sales, the next two slides is going to be focusing on marketing and sales, which is pretty much what the majority of businesses is happening right now using live streaming. So currently, as I mentioned before, consumers are giving very limited options in terms of what they're about to see during the live streaming sessions, and brands are still taking the uphand. So in the future, we figure, again, there's going to be a universal system or operational system where consumers are able to browse through and choose whatever they wanted to see, all the way from the content, the choice of hosts, and even sound and visual effects, using Hollywood style visual effect into their live streaming content. So basically, the future live streaming is going to be 100% personalized and customized, right? Yeah, this is about the visual and sound effects we've just envisioned. Maybe let's move on to the next slide. Right. So here we're lucky enough to involve one of the experts in the industry, Jacques, who used to be the SVP of Pandora in Greater China. And he told us that this is going to be the next big thing in terms of live streaming content, in terms of how we allow consumers to have a say or decide whatever the content they're receiving. We need to, sort of give the options to the consumers instead of brands decide all of them, right? Yeah. And I think this is coming to the very downstream of the supply chain is regarding after-sales services. So right now, pretty much what we get as customer services are AI empowered and programmed. So what if people still want customized or personalized services when it comes to after-sale services? So for example, you're having your handbag under repair at a factory and you wanted to see the status and the expected time for pickup. So this will be a completely live streaming content related thing because you'll be able to follow up or follow through and monitor the entire repair process, and you'll get an idea when you'll be picking up and how you will interact in between and have a one-on-one customer service with the chatbot or the program. Right.
So those are major implications for businesses, imagining that you will be always on and your entire business value chain is becoming a live consumer touch point. So one of the aspects is that if your entire value chain is a consumer touch point, then everyone is a customer service assistant. The second aspect is that if you're always on, if this becomes an always on feature, we may have issues with stress, increased stress at work, and also data privacy conflict. And one thing that we wanted to highlight over here is one of the features of innovation is that once you give more visibility and transparency and more real time to consumers, it's very hard to go back. So now we could never not imagine going back to not knowing when your parcel is arriving, right? Because you have it in real time at any time on your WeChat mini program. So we have to be, mindful and careful about pushing through those innovations because sometimes there is no going back. And the third aspect is, segmenting live streaming by objective. And I think what Jacques was saying is that they're already segmenting certain live streaming only for VIP clients or only for people who have purchased certain items. So it's already starting to come up. And finally, accompany ever-changing consumer needs and helping to, as much as possible, make live streaming customizable and personal. So a third aspect of live streaming is the host, and we really pushed it through to imagine what it could mean to have hosts beyond humans. Mm-hmm. Whether we could have AI figures, even nature or natural phenomena, and what about even inside the human body, in the micro, super, uber tiny.
Right. Yeah, so the first of all would be artificial intelligence figures. So this might not be entirely new to us because we already see virtual figures doing the live hosting or live sessions for us, especially on Tmall. But what if you can try swapping your faces with any AI figures you might fancy? For example, you might want to see a kitty doing the live streaming for you, or it can be the face of an alien from the outer space. So whatever have you will be the next best host choice for your live streaming content. So for those who are curious about the phenomenon or the natural concepts, you're going to see live streaming getting hosted from the angle of a piece of cloud or from the outer space, where you'll be able to just sit there and watch real-time live experiences, what's happening out there, how the weather is going to change for the next couple of hours. And the last but not least is the craziest thing we can figure is that, because we already touched on how live streaming hosts are going to evolve on the macro level, but how small can they evolve into? And we figure in the future, the monitor or the camera is going to be as miniature as a human cell. And this kind of concept is going to be extensively applied in the medical area or research area, where people can, basically allow you to take in a pill or like a medicine drug or something, and basically that's going to be the carrier of the live streaming camera, and you'll be able to inspect your inner body and to see how your body is changing or not changing to help you, better understand your health. And that's something can be indicated into the research area as well, because as women tend to have different kinds of concept over skincare products, but in this way, we can have this miniature live streaming sessions, so you can see if they're going to actually make sense in your own body, and before they're even trying out on human beings. Yeah.
So yeah, diversifying those type of hosts are going to give more options for brands in order to go beyond just the KOLs that we see today. You'll also be able, because think about observing natural phenomena. This already exists. There is a tree that has been live streamed for a year, and some people were looking at 24/7 for 1 year, 365 days. You could come and look at the tree. And I think this creates super hypnotic and very fascinating experiences that really can build a very strong sense of purpose for people watching those live streaming. And finally, you will see brands and companies competing for outstanding content creating resources. So we already see a content creator economy is taking a huge importance for social media and live streaming, but we'll see that going into ever new directions. So products, we also think that products are going to be redefined by new forms of live streaming. First, within the live streaming, the types of products that you'll be able to choose to be part of your live streaming, selecting your product portfolio to be streamed, maybe mixing brands and categories, but even more deeper, we'll see, and hopefully we can discuss more about how products have been redefined by e-commerce and how we're seeing products can be redefined in their nature by live streaming.
Yeah. So I know we've talked about how live streaming can be hosted in the nature area or through AI lenses, but at the end of the day, we all need to capitalize our live streaming content. So that'll give us an idea how we strategize over our product mix and product categories. And the first evolution is going to be regarding product selection. So right now, still, as we mentioned before, brands have the options to throw whatever they have in stock to be included in their live streaming sessions. But what do consumers really want? They might want something that's out of season or even overstocked. That's not going to be an option for brands to throw. But consumer in the futures, they will have the opportunity to see or to combine their favorite products, maybe in their shopping carts, and to combine them into one single live streaming session just for them. So again, this will give consumers more says or more options to choose whatever they want within their live streaming content. And in terms of brands and categories, so pretty much what we see right now is typically single-branded or unique category live streaming content. So what if in the future you wanted to combine an Hermes handbag live streaming with an H&M t-shirt? So that's going to be cross-category or even cross-segmentation, but still it's going to happen. It's be the next best thing for you to watch over your live streaming content. And last but not least, I think this is the most vital thing that we need to bear in mind when it comes to product strategy is as our commerce is evolving from the very beginning of brick and mortar all the way to the next phase of live commerce, we need to shift our product strategy along the way. So let's say at the beginning of brick and mortar, what matters to businesses is how they package the products and how they strategize over the shelf space in store and maybe in the supermarkets. But under the current phase of e-commerce-led era, what matters the most is how they picture the products or how they frame those or even do the food presentation to consumers so that they could look engaging or tempting to consumers and they wanted to purchase in store or online, whatever. But in the next biggest thing is going to be live commerce. The content is going to completely video friendly. So brands need to think about how they will shoot or film their entire production line all the way, this echoes back with our supply chain management. They need to film the entire process of how their end products are being assembled, how they would be presented to their end consumers. So that'll include a lot of elements during the process, and they will need to be engaging and tempting and authentic all the way along. Yeah.
So that has obviously major implications. So the first one, which is starting to happen now, is always be live streaming ready. So as you are launching a new product or a new brand, usually there are visual brand identities. That's mainly for the 2D e-commerce world. But we'll have to go into live streaming guidelines in order to help be able to launch products on live streaming. You will have to be more open to mixing with counterparts and be more creative to mixing with different categories. And finally, upgrading your products to the needs of live streaming. And we think this can go very, very far in the sense that, making your products more broadcast friendly, you'll have to consider what sound does your packaging make when it opens. Is it really annoying plastic wrap, or is it a soothing experience? And a whole lot of areas that will make your product more appealing for live streaming. And finally, regulations and moving towards real-time control. As you've understood, we've developed this content also by doing a lot of interview with industry experts. And we've asked Running, who's a vice president of Buy Quickly, which is one of the largest Taobao partner for luxury fashion brands, how they handle the regulatory mindset. So she's sharing with us that as professional live streaming operators, and they operate more than 10 live streaming per day, per hour, they have multiple brands, we already are handling compliance issues by overcoming delays, blacklisted words. We do see quite a lot of regulation related and technical risk, which is the reason why we always factor risk management and automated content checkup into our business planning. So what you may not see and realize is that operations and live streaming is being checked and automatically checked by operators as it's going out, so they can manage and control risk, which we know is a major risk with what happened with Austin Lee and all of those things. So let's look at, we really think that a full-blown regulation system is going to catch up as the growth of live streaming is really pushing personal data, IP protection to new risky brinks. And just a little parenthesis, I think I've been here for 13 years, and what I've seen has changed major in last year was that up until last year, the government was adopting a really wait and see approach, letting innovation blossom, letting markets start and regulate afterwards. What we're starting to see is that the regulation is coming ahead of time now. So this is becoming an even more important issue. So we're going to see impact on personal information protection, on child and adolescent protection with what's going on with video games, and also portrait rights protection, because if you can choose your live streaming host, you'll be able to synthesize their voice and their face as well. So that's going to come with protection, IP protection.
Yeah. Right, so as crazy as live streaming might go, as we imagined before, we are going to have AI figures doing our live streaming for us, but that's going to give us a risk in terms of how we protect our personal information and data. So again, we imagine the future evolution is going to be this kind of operational system where people get to where there's going to be a feature that helps detect human emotional or expressional shifts during the live streaming, so that the hosts or the content creators, they can adjust their strategy and pace while the live streaming goes on. But again, maybe just a little bit more. Yeah, that'll give us an idea of how risky it's going to be, because it'll touch our sensitive, biological data protection. So that's something we need to be compliant all the time. And since the China government has already released regulation, protecting our adolescent or underage consumer from e-gaming, live streaming, and from cash incentives during live streaming sessions, we always need to understand how to standardize our live streaming content to protect our adolescent group of people. And in the future, there's going to be a universally agreed upon agreement or policy in terms of how we rate our live streaming content. That's something very similar to the movie industry, where people get to see the content that are proper for all of our audiences, and the ones that are not appropriate for adolescents. That's going to be the same idea as live streaming content regulation. And the very last protection is regarding portrait rights. So again, we've touched on how people can choose their favorite celebrity or star to be their host for the next live streaming session. But again, that's going to be violating the celebrity's own portrait rights. So we strongly recommend MCNs or agencies who manage these KOL or celebrity assets to truly think about how to commercialize or capitalize their celebrities' portrait assets into intellectual properties. Yeah.
Totally. So with all that, brands will have to balance being more daring and buzzworthy in a very, very crowded and noisy environment, but also manage increasingly restrictive regulation. So more protocol and real-time self-censorship with real-time processing is already going on, but for very advanced and mature players. So for those who are not there taking a risk every time they live stream. Managing what we call the gray area, and maybe being a little bit more conservative on that with potentially rating policies and being mindful of the risk and regulations. And finally, new IP opportunities. So having the ability to synthesize the voice of celebrities and their faces and generate additional revenue because it can be used in live streaming in the future. So really what we see is China is leading the way of live streaming innovations and being pushed out to the rest of the world. Consumer brands and platforms are all hooked on that new way of interacting. So the question for us becomes, how do you identify weak signals, leverage new technology, tap into emerging trends, and navigate this new regulatory environment so you can pioneer this new era of brand-consumer relationship? So that's it. So how do we know all of that? We've been structuring and creating studies and guidelines about live streaming, and we've been also deploying live streaming with our brands. This study was developed with Alice and Pepe, our art director, and we have a lot more coming up, and that has already been published. So please continue to explore together with us. And I want to have the FABERNOVEL team raise their hand. So please reach out to us, and we're so happy to continue conversation together. Thanks for coming. Thank you.